From the California State Senate, this is Senate Spotlight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this segment of Senate Spotlight, where we discuss legislative policy, priorities, and other related issues with members of the California State Senate. And from the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green. Back with us this time again is our state senator from the Chino area and the 20th Senate District, State Senator Connie Leyva, who also happens to be the chair of the Democratic Caucus in the Senate. Welcome back.
Happy to be here, Brian. Thank you for having me. How you doing? Doing great. Doing great. We had a really good year on Team Leyva, so it's a good thing for our constituents.
Well, you've read my talking notes here, so I do want to talk about that. Look back at the legislative session just ended. Bills are signed, some vetoed. You've had a pretty successful year, but let's just look at the blue sky element of this. And the Democratic Caucus, the legislature, the Assembly, and the Senate, some have said this has been the most progressive legislative session in history. Is that hyperbole, or do you actually believe that?
I actually believe that. I feel very lucky to be a part of the Democratic Caucus right now. We have done some amazing work. I work with some amazing people, and it's very exciting. It's very exciting to see that we're moving things forward for Californians, and specifically working Californians and working families.
Let's talk about that specifically. You have made some significant legislative contributions in that regard. First, I want to talk about your extraordinary and historic bill that you put through the process this year, SB 813, eliminating the statute of limitations here in California for rape and other sex crimes, signed by the governor. Tell us about the empowerment behind this Justice for Victims Act.
Oh, this bill. It has been such an emotional roller coaster. And when it was brought to my attention that there was a statute of limitation on rape, I thought, that doesn't seem right. And when we delved into it and decided to author the bill and put it forward, I have been stunned and amazed by the people who have come forward, the victims or survivors, if you will, mostly women, a few men, but it just became I became even more passionate about it the farther we went along, because I really had no idea what an extreme problem this was.
Well, we have a statute of limitations for embezzlement and for murder, but not for sex crimes.
But no, there's no statute of limitation on murder, and what I've said all along is people get murdered by accident all the time. Mm-hmm. No one gets raped by accident, so why would we have a statute? So I'm thrilled that all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle and both sides of the House voted unanimously. We sent it to the governor and greatly appreciate him seeing it and the right way and doing the right thing.
And currently it is 10 years here in California,
Yeah, that
right?
is correct, yes.
Okay. And with this new law, you in many ways are not only balancing the scales, you have actually created, particularly in this state, some activism.
Yes.
I mean, there's women and men who've come together from different places in their lives, have joined together in testimony, and a shared history I know that none of them would have wished they would have had.
Yes.
So, I mean, talk a little bit more about some of the things that you have heard going through this process.
It's just amazing to speak with all of these, mostly women, but some men, and just to give them a feeling of hope. And when I talked to some of the district attorneys when I was trying to decide if I was going to do the bill, to hear them say, when people come before me and it's been 10 years and one day and I have to tell them there's nothing we can do, they said it's very, very difficult. So now this gives survivors hope. It gives them hope that their perpetrator will be brought to justice and actually do jail time.
And courage and tenacity also in telling a story to benefit a law that they cannot benefit from.
That's exactly right. The women were amazing, and the stories that were told would just break your heart. But they were courageous, and without them, I couldn't have got the bill to the governor's desk. So we'll always appreciate them.
Not exclusive to California, though, right? There's other states that have extended it. 3 that are currently seeking changes now. Other states have a 20-year, which gives you a little more pad of time. But where does California stack up with some of those other states?
So I think we are the 18th. I think there were 17 other states who had already eliminated the statute of limitation, but it is kind of a patchwork across the country. Some states have extended the statute of limitation, something we weren't really interested in doing. We feel like 20 years, you don't wake up and feel like, oh, everything's great. So eliminating was really what we were hoping for. Glad that the governor saw it that way as well. And my hope would be that other states across the country will look to California and say, you know what, we want to do the same thing. We want to take this as the serious crime that it is.
Arguments against this law, you've left a lot of statute of limitation defenders out there in the wake of this who really still do oppose it. The arguments are nothing new for you, but they say, again, getting rid of a deadline like this disadvantages the defendants in some of these long-buried cases. And then you risk sentencing, incarceration of an innocent person. You know, they've called it disabling, grossly unfair.
Yeah.
I mean, the ACLU is even out there. What do you say to that? I mean, that's still a deep concern.
Right. So what I say and what I've always said is, of course, we never want someone incarcerated who's innocent for any crime. But when you look at statistics and you see that only 2 in 100 rapists actually ever do any jail time, we know we're not unnecessarily putting people in jail who shouldn't be there. And I think that the statute, the burden of proof is still there. So if you come forward in 20 years and you go to a prosecutor and you say, you know, I want to go after this rapist, and the proof isn't there, then they're not going to pursue the case. So none of that has changed. All this does is make sure that every victim can become a survivor and have the hope and know that there is no time limit on justice.
This is not a sentence enhancement
Not
legislation,
at all.
but are there some racial disparity concerns here, paving the way for more reporting of sex crimes and removing a statute of limitations that to some degree maybe stacks the deck against poor and minority offenders, allegedly?
You know, I don't think so. I think that rapists come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. I don't think that they are necessarily of one nationality. And when you talk to all the women, anecdotally, when you talk to all the women, the men who raped them were not of one color. They came in all shapes and sizes and all colors. So no, I do not think that.
Last time we talked about this, I didn't mention his name, but you all have over this last year. Comedian Bill Cosby has been, and the alleged crimes there have been part of the provocative element of this. But I think really there's other elements that have really created a greater overall awareness, the Stanford rape case, et cetera, things. So maybe speak to that a little bit about going forward, the momentum and the idea about this.
So my hope is going forward is we have just touched the tip of the iceberg with this law. Now we have so much work to do downstream to make sure we're educating folks and make sure that we're raising our young men and women correctly. I have to say, you know, a huge debt of gratitude to the Cosby survivors. They were extremely helpful in this. And I think that this has given people a sense of empowerment that we can change the rape culture in California, certainly, and we can do better.
All right, empowerment for domestic workers here in California. Governor signed your SB 1015, which provides permanent protections to overtime for domestic workers. Tell us about the bill and who are those workers? What does this mean to them? So
this was another amazing group of mostly women. We have 300,000 domestic workers in California. 98% are female, and these are the folks who come into your home and take care of our most vulnerable, our children, our elderly, our disabled. And when the NLRA was written, they were left out. They could not receive overtime. So a bill was passed and authored last year that did give them overtime. It was set to sunset in 2017. So we are thrilled that the governor signed it, and they will be able to receive overtime pay in perpetuity.
And looking back, these are a lot of workers that were originally left out of the overtime rules in this state and nationally. And actually, I believe now it's sort of empowered some of these folks to go to the labor board and make sure that this is enforced. So empowering as well as providing the financial support. So.
Yeah, oh, it's so exciting. These women were just amazing, and they worked so hard to get the bill passed, so hard, talking to legislators in both the Assembly and the Senate. They just inspire me, and I'm thrilled that the governor signed it.
There was some concern about even some economic disparity here, that the original bill that was there had placed a burden on low-income disabled people who were hiring assistants who would get paid overtime versus those folks who had a lot of money who were hiring people to come in because they just didn't want to do the work. Was there sort of an unfair burden? Not, getting into too much detail here, but was there some concern there?
There was definitely concern there, and I think that the concern did not bear out. There was a report that was done and showed that that was not what was happening. I think we always have to be concerned to make sure that the lowest paid among us, I still have the ability to pay someone to come into their home, but what we really saw is people saying, I don't have to work all month for $1,000. I don't have to work 24 hours and not get any overtime. My hours are shortened. I can take care of my family, make enough money to take care of my family. I think that it's a circle of life, and this has helped empower these folks to take care of their own families as well.
Talking also about overtime issues, we also went to farm workers. I know that wasn't your legislation, but I know it was one you supported. So that was another bill that you folks took up this year too, right?
It's amazing what we were able to do in the legislature this year, and
including the increase in the minimum wage.
Yes, it's wonderful. It's been a great year.
Well, so from justice to for victims to consistency for domestic workers, then we'll talk about environmental justice.
Yes.
The governor also signed your bill that brings an environmental justice element to residents of disadvantaged communities. So talk about SB 1000.
SB 1000, well, you know, they say you're not supposed to fall in love with your bills, but I loved all of my bills. This one...
They are like children.
They are. And this bill came about because early on when I was elected in 2015, I took the toxic tour with CCAEJ, and they took me from one end of my jurisdiction to the other and just pointed out to me in communities, poor communities, they don't pollute in rich communities, what was happening to these folks living there, and that was really the inspiration to do SB 1000.
Yeah, I saw a statistic from Cali, PA, 7.4 million people,
Yes.
nearly 20% of the population live in these communities that are environmentally compromised.
It's shocking, and they're all poor. And to me, it hurt my heart because it said if you're poor, you don't have the same rights as someone who's wealthy or has enough money not to live there.
So what do you do specifically with the bill? What do you require in the ERR?
So this bill will require that when cities do their plan, their city plan, their general plan, that they include an environmental justice plan. Just being smart. It's about smart building. This isn't about not building homes, not building factories. It's about not putting it right in the middle of a neighborhood. Don't put something that's polluting right in the middle of a neighborhood. Let's just be smart about it. We can have a part of the city where we're doing manufacturing or whatever, but let's make sure that where our children live, where our families live, they are not by a toxic environment, a toxic dump, if you will.
What are the county managers and the planners saying in response to this? Have they been supportive up to this point?
Kind of.
I mean, the bill didn't have any opposition going out.
Right. I would have to say that I had huge kudos to my staff for working with everyone and removing the opposition. I think they were somewhat worried. I think they're better now. I think when they understood that we're not trying to go back and say you have to fix this, you have to fix that, that it's a prospective bill, and just to, when you update your general plan, to include this element. For many cities, they won't update their general plan for a number of years. So I have plenty of time to think about it and plan. Well, everybody seems okay now.
Well, you call this environmental justice.
Yes.
In fact, it really is, I think, a civil rights issue.
Absolutely, yes. I would totally agree with you, Brian.
You have another piece of legislation dealing with environmental justice, requiring public water systems in California to inventory their lead pipes. We've heard the stories about Flint, Michigan this year. Very shocking. It happens here in California. Talk about SB 1398.
Shocking is the word. I was shocked to find out that there are still lead pipes in use in California. So this will require, as you said, an inventory of those lead pipes and then a plan to fix them, to eliminate the use. And we know that there is no safe level of lead that we can consume, and we know that it is especially harmful to children. So this, to me, this is just a no-brainer. We have to take care of our children. We have to take care of all of us.
Congratulations on these bills.
Thank you.
Looking forward to 2017, resetting the clock, new colleagues, new policies. Anything you are able to tip your hand with here with us about what the caucus is looking at, what you're looking at in terms of policy?
Well, I would say that we're very excited. I'm very excited about our new colleagues coming in. I'm sure they'll bring fresh new ideas that we can all grab onto and work together on. I think you probably see a theme in my bills, justice. I think that we'll be looking at some more issues like that. But we're in the process right now, the team is in the process right now of putting together the bill package for Team Leyva in 2017.
I want to talk about an issue too close to home. We're coming up on an anniversary, if you will, one that we'd all would love to not have to commemorate, the December 2015 terrorist attack in the San Bernardino, right on the east side of your district. A dozen lives lost, 2 dozen people injured. Worst domestic terrorism up to that point since 9/11. But we in some ways saw the best of the human condition in the aftermath of that. In the last year, with law enforcement and with first responders, what's happened in the community? How have you healed? How have you moved forward?
You know, it's really interesting. I was in San Bernardino yesterday, and the sense of pride for where they live has seemed to even grown more. And the sense that this is who we are, this is where we're staying, and we're not going to let this scare us off is really strong. So you're exactly right. The best of the human spirit has come out. And my hope is people will see what a good city and wonderful city San Bernardino can be, and let's get some business in there and some more affordable housing and really let the city shine.
Final question, because I have you here as a legislative leader. We are, as we speak, in the aftermath of a force-changing election, a new presidency coming up that, from expressing my opinion here, could be, if anything, if not cataclysmic. What do we do here in California? California is a pretty strong state, but even the pro tem and the speaker released a statement yesterday saying that we've kind of woke up feeling like strangers in a foreign land because Americans, in a lot of ways with their vote, expressed ideals that, to some degree, are very contrary to what we do here in California. So looking at California's interests in this, basically, what are we going to do here for the next 4 years to stand up for what we have here in California in terms of civil rights, in terms of environment, et cetera?
Well, very shocking, our new president, a president-elect, but I couldn't be more proud to be a Californian, couldn't be more proud to be a legislator, and I think that in California we just have to move forward and be unafraid and continue to lead the way for the country. We've always been a leader in that way, but I think it's more important and critical than ever that California says this is who we are and this is who our country is, and just move forward.
All right. Thank you for the efforts to help us move forward for your work on justice and other issues. So
my pleasure.
We'll have you back next year and see where things are going for 2017.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. State Senator Connie Leyva from Chino, the 20th Senate District, also the chair of the Senate Democratic Caucus. And that is this edition of Senate Spotlight. Join us next time around as we discuss important legislative issues and policy with the newsmakers and the newsbreakers of the California State Senate. From the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Senate Spotlight.